Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, the play's The Thing, with your host, Judy Sleed. Special guest, Dr. Levine Madori, professor and author. Now here's Judy.
In Paris. Thank you again, Lee, for we're going to have another wonderful guest here, wonderful half hour. Linda Madori.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Linda is a very pretty lady, and she's extremely talented.
Thank you.
And you have this book here. It is called Therapeutic. You say it because I have an accent.
Therapeutic Thematic Arts Programming, and it's for older adults, as well as those with any cognitive problems, as well as Alzheimer's disease.
Now, I don't even know what question to ask you first about what does this mean? What's in this book?
Well, let me start by saying that we're right now living in a world which is rapidly aging. And many of us don't want to look at the aging aspect, but in fact, across the United States, 78 million baby boomers are going to turn 65 by the year 2010. And that means that our older population, our population in general, is going to shift to an older population as we enter middle age. And with that comes a host of medical issues and problems. We're living longer, we are well, we also have technology, medical technology, that enhances our lifespan. And where this book came out of, Therapeutic Thematic Arts Programming, was the 25 years I've spent as a therapist in nursing homes, assisted living, daycare programs, providing programs, therapeutic programs, for individuals who are well as individuals who have cognitive impairment. So really that's where the book came out of. And one of the book is founded, and I think it's the first of its kind, that it's a methodology that's founded in the neuroscience of the brain and how we're starting to understand the brain since the year 2000. We were never able to look inside the brain before the CAT scan and PET scan, and that's only 7 years ago.
Well, I'm just so happy you're doing this, because there was a time I took care of elderly people, a little bit here, and I was saying to myself, we are aiding them with medication and care, but what do they have to live for? And
Yes.
so they should somehow improve the living. And from what I understand, this is going to improve your living as you grow older.
Exactly. We are, 10 years ago when we grew older, maybe we thought we'd live to 80 or 90. Now we're living 10, 20 years in old age. So it's very important to bring in what we call now person-centered programming, where you take the activities from the person's past, you bring them into present opportunities to help for future interventions or programs. So what themes do is they bring about themes in our lives for talking about them. And that's how actually the TAP method starts. Therapeutic Thematic Arts Programming is also called the TAP method. So the very first step of the TAP method, would you like me to go over the 9 steps for you?
Please do.
Well, the first step of the TAP method has people, whether they're in a group or it can be done over a kitchen counter, talk about a theme. And themes can be personal, like a family or love or how many children you have, or a theme can be environmental or seasonal. And once a theme is picked and everybody talks about how they feel about that theme, then the first stage is that conversation, which is using our linguistic skills. And we know that through Howard Gardner's work, who's a psychologist, that there are 7 different ways of learning: linguistic, musical, interactive, introspective, kinesthetic, and spatial. So in the second step of the TAP method, we see that we take that group discussion into music, and we find music that matches up to the theme. So if we're talking about a holiday, you can bring in music to that theme. If we're talking about a vacation, we can bring in music, sounds of the ocean, sounds of the wind. And then linking the project up to a painting project, which is step number 3. And the person goes from painting. Step 4 is from painting, you bring the person to do a sculpture program. Step 5 is using sculpture and moving into a movement program. And from movement, step 6 is moving into poetry and words. And step 7 is linking that program from poetry and words to a food program, maybe talking about how cultural food affects your life, whether you're from Spain or from Haiti, what types of foods you knew as a child. We go into step 8, which is to a theme event, because many times in nursing homes and community centers, they have theme programs, a big holiday birthday party or some such. And then the 9th step is taking a theme event and linking it up to a phototherapeutic activity.
That sounds wonderful. And you talked a lot about senior centers or homes where these people live. So what you want to do is just have them use these programs.
Well, yes. Today there are, I was just reading this the other day, there's 18,000 nursing homes in just the United States. And out of these 18,000 nursing homes, there are 1.2 million people in those homes who have Alzheimer's disease. And in the United States in total, there are 5 million people with Alzheimer's disease. That number is going to rise dramatically as we see the baby boomers get older, because there's such a large cohort of aging individuals.
So are you saying that somebody who has Alzheimer's disease, they would benefit from your program? Or this what you
Absolutely.
talk about?
Yes, because the TAP method uses right brain and left brain. So, for instance, I actually brought with me to show you today a photographic concept, which is arts for interaction. And this is a photograph of an image.
You put it in front of me.
Is this?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, this is a photograph of an image, and then the individual, this on Velcro board, can move these pieces and create their own image. Now, we know through the neuroscience that moving pictures, picking these pieces up and putting them down in certain places, is actually utilizing our right brain, because our right brain is creativity. So creating something, we're stimulating our right brain. If I were to say to you, how many pieces are here? And you would answer, there's 4 pieces.
6.
No. No, there's 4. That's using your left brain because you're counting. And what we've now discovered is that if you use your right brain and your left brain, your brain wellness is going to be enhanced. Because we now know that we have what's called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the ability for the cells in our brain, your brain, my brain, everyone, to make new cells when we are stimulated visually or verbally or environmentally.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, that's really very, very interesting and promising.
Yes, it is. It's very promising because we never really knew before 2001 that neuroplasticity even existed. We thought up until the year 2000 that we were born, and by age 5 we had our whole brain developed. And from middle age to old age we just lost brain cells. Well, that's not true. We don't even have our whole brain developed till age 25, we've learned.
Wow.
And from 25 to 105, you are using and can improve your cognitive abilities by using both right brain and left brain. So it's very important for people, for instance, if you're always a mathematician, you've always been an accountant, that person should also look to do something creative, to take maybe a dance class or to take a painting class, because that balance between right brain and left brain enhances our brain wellness.
How very, very interesting. I never thought of my thoughts as coming from a right or the left brain. So the more you diversify, the healthier you are.
Yes, absolutely. And this came out of the research of Marion Diamond in UCLA, where she studied the brains of individuals who had passed on. And she saw that the brains, specifically the hippocampus, is thicker and plumper in individuals who have higher education.
The hippo what?
It's called the hippocampus.
Hippocampus.
We have two of them. It's right in the middle of our head, above our ears. And that's the area of our brain that can grow with use or shrink if we don't use it. So if you go home at age 65 and sit on a couch, your hippocampus is going to shrink up. If you go out and you're active and engaged, your hippocampus can change mass, shape, and density.
Well, that's why they say what you don't use, you lose.
That's exactly right. And so the TAP method is now formulated and built on using the arts, whether it be music, dance, movement, to enhance our brain wellness, which hopefully we will look to prevent cognitive decline with specifically people with Alzheimer's disease. Because if you keep people engaged and active, then the brain can thwart off getting these abnormal plaques and tangles.
Yeah, I can see that when people become like elderly and they're all alone and you sit in their room in the dark,
Exactly.
how everything stops.
Yes, yes.
Well, I would like to know where you're from, where were you born?
Well, I actually was born in the Bronx. And
Bronx.
For 3 years, and then I moved to Westchester. My background, first and foremost, was always an artist. I thought I was going to teach art at a very young age.
What type of art?
I did sculpture and painting. I'm an avid oil painter today.
Wow.
Matter of fact, the cover is one of my oil paintings.
Oh.
And I use my oil paintings in some of the products that I've developed for individuals to interact, arts for interaction, so that arts are developed so that I could interact with you over an activity. And so I have a master's in art therapy and I have a master's in therapeutic recreation, and my PhD was from NYU in studying health education and looking at cognitive impairments through therapeutic activities. And so my dissertation research looked at 120 individuals in 5 different nursing homes in New York City. And I looked at the very first day they went into the nursing home, and then 365 days later. And the individuals only had to have mild Alzheimer's disease. So they couldn't have a broken hip, they couldn't be on any medicine. And my study showed that those people who engaged in therapeutic activities more across that year had higher levels of cognitive abilities at the end of 360 days, and those that didn't engage in activities had lower cognitive abilities and lower psychosocial well-being. So it makes us more aware that to be engaged and to talk and be part of a group, even if it's an arts group, can keep us well.
That's very, very interesting. So you must have really been very ambitious to find out more and more about
Yeah, I was
this.
I was like a sponge, very hungry to find out more information, and then decided to write my book because I felt that it was filling a niche that we have not had ever before. We never knew how important the arts have been. Matter of fact, we've gone through, 2 decades where they've taken art out of the schools. Well, my book is a reason to put arts back into the schools, because arts, now we know, impacts our brain directly. So,
So anybody else in your family is interested in things like this?
no, I'm the only one.
You're the only
I'm
one.
the only one.
Yes, and do you have any siblings that...
Well, I have 2 sisters. Both my parents are alive, my husband, and I have 4 children of my own. My children might end up going into some area. I have a daughter who is majoring in, who's just graduated University of Vermont in the arts. So she's looking to possibly become an art teacher. And then one of my other daughters is just graduated in psychology and is going for a master's in social work. Wow. So I do have two, and then I have a third daughter who is actually teaching special education and going for her master's at George Washington University.
Wow, so you're talking about your children are in New York City?
Yes. Absolutely.
And you live in the city. You told me that you went to California.
Well, I went on a Fulbright scholarship. When I finished writing this book, I was awarded a Fulbright scholarship for the innovative use of neuroscience meeting the arts. And so I actually taught for 6 months in New Zealand, all through New Zealand and Australia, through Victoria University in Australia. And what I did was teach therapists, social workers, as well as caregivers through the Alzheimer's Association in New Zealand and Australia, how to use this methodology and how to use arts in people's daily lives by using a theme. For instance, if I were to give you a seashell, and I'd say, Judy, give me some idea that you have about this seashell. What might you say? What ideas come to mind?
That it comes from the sea. It is a nice shape. Some of them have nice colors.
And if I said to you, when was the last time you were at the beach?
Oh my gosh, I was about 2 years ago. Well, lately I have to say I'm not as agile as I was, so I like a pool instead of the beach.
Yeah, but the seashell is a means to get people talking. See, that's the point. I could find out more about you through giving you an object like a seashell. I could find out that you haven't been to the beach, even though we are here in East Hampton. There's the most beautiful beach in the world. But that's a window into who you are. So then I could find out more about you and where you do spend your time. You see, so that's how themes are used to enhance individuals' communication with each other and verbalizing. Because the more we talk and speak, again, we're creating mental abilities.
Right. This because, as I said before, when I was with elderly people and we took them to to a social gathering, they didn't gain anything. I mean, this would have been just really more wonderful. And
that's very interesting you say that they didn't gain anything, because people tend not to know how to speak to the person who's aging.
Right.
And that's very powerful what you said, because in fact, what we look to do now is to speak to them about their past, because our past is held in our long-term memory. So do you remember, for instance, your kindergarten teacher?
Yes, I do.
See, that's a long-term memory. So if we talk to the older individual through their past, they'll open up a whole set of stories to tell you, because it's cherished information, and they also have a lot of detail about that information. So that's what the TAP method does. It shows therapists how to interact better with the older person, what kinds of questions to ask, and how to engage them.
Now, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When an individual whose memory is not good, if they tell you something that is not true, would you just, they are mistaken, would you just tell them, no, you're wrong, or would you just go along with them and just not to embarrass them that they've said something wrong?
That's a very good question. We now know that was a whole element of psychology that's changed in the last 2 decades. 2 decades ago, they would have said, no, correct the person, tell them that's not correct. If somebody was looking for their spouse that passed away, for instance.
Yes,
But now we believe, through the validation theory, which was created by Naomi Feldman, that you're supposed to validate the person wherever they are in their life.
I'm so glad you said that, because I used to go along with them, whereas other people kept arguing, no, you're wrong. And I would say, just hold back, and I
Yes.
said, just let's go along with.
Yes, so you knew, because
Yeah.
it's important to go along with where they are. Many times, and my students will come back and say they've been doing an internship. They'll come back and say, the person thought I was their daughter, or the person
Oh,
thought I was their
yes.
son. And I just go along with it and ask them if they'd like to do an activity with me. I get them involved in speaking, and I constantly tell them that that's the right way to interact, to go along with
Go along with them. Well, I thank
yes.
you.
Yeah. So you were right.
I was right. Yeah, that's very. This is very, very helpful. Like you said, it hasn't been done before.
No.
And I used to feel so badly that we're keeping these old people alive, but they have nothing to get up for.
Well, that's another good point, because if you engage someone with something they're interested in, like bringing in a hobby from their past, one of the things that I do with phototherapy is, for instance, if the person liked to garden or to sail, I now have an Arts for Interaction phototherapy book that I could show them pictures of sailing or pictures of gardens and have them interact with you and talk about their past interests through these photographs. So that's what really is, we're starting to see that we can open up someone's life and keep them alive and keep them wanting to engage if they're interested in it. And again, going back to being person-centered with the programming. So you don't just line everyone up in front of bingo and expect that to be
Yes.
fulfilling. In fact, you go into the person's history and you assess, what did they like to do?
Well, this one individual that I'm thinking about, she used to remember songs, all the
Yes.
words to the song that she would sing. So we used to sing a lot.
That's right, and that's one of the steps, the music. One of the steps of the TAP method, we use music of olden time
Yes.
because we memorized it somehow in our mind. We don't know why, but music causes an emotional snapshot. So if you take a piece of music, if you're driving in your car and a piece of music comes on, does it not bring you back to who you were with? A special person, a special girlfriend? And so music is very powerful to the human psyche. So music is a great aspect to use, and it's part of the TAP method with people who are older, because they remember the music where they might not remember my name.
Right. Now, this method for how to deal with people whose memory is going, is this something that you would be teaching to the people who work in homes?
Yes, I teach at St. Thomas Aquinas College in Rockland County, and my students who learn therapeutic recreation, actually I've developed a course now that they learn how to engage the TAP method in their internship. So they create a theme. Their responsibility is to go into the nursing home or the community center where they're working and create a theme using all these 9 steps. And they have to photograph themselves with the individuals, having conversation about a theme, picking a theme. For instance, we're coming into September. It's a time for change, right? The weather changes, people change, they go from vacation to work. Well, the TAP method, to use a theme, the person could maybe use the theme of change in autumn. So you might put on autumn music and then have them think about what forest they've been in and the changing leaves, then have them draw those leaves. Then from drawing, maybe they want to sculpt their Halloween pumpkin because it's going into October and Halloween. And that's how we use the TAP method. Then from the Halloween pumpkin, maybe we want to do a food program that's reminiscent of the candy that we would create as an individual who was going out trick-or-treating.
And would you say that there are some therapists who would just do this method individually if they want?
Absolutely. This method is being done individual, and it's actually now being researched by a student in up Rochester, in Rochester, New York. A graduate student is using the tap method just for Spanish-speaking individials.
So
So this product is going. I'm sorry?
I said aso, and that's Japanese.
So yes, it's being done in Spanish and bilingual, as well as some of the Perfect Sense products and Arts for Interaction will be available in Spanish.
So that thing that you showed me before was that, are there any other methods that you created this, right?
Yes, yes.
Is there anything else you created that
Yeah, this is the
mind?
puzzle. Then I created create a memory box activity, so the individual can sit down.
Is that a visual thing?
They have a box, and then they can glue things on it like seashells or mosaic tiles, and then put their cherished memories in the memory box. And what's wonderful is these type of products help intergenerationally, so grandchildren can interact with their grandparents using these type of activities. So beyond the activity box, there's a sculpture kit, and there's painting to music. So these are all different activities that can be engaging.
Well, I think this is really a wonderful thing that you created, and I think you're going to go down in history books.
Well, thank you.
And believe it or not, our time is up, and I want to thank you so much for giving this information.
Thank you for having me.
And to the world. And I want to thank everybody who helped me to create this show. And tune in again next week. It's another wonderful guest, Dan Bailey. He's a musician, drummer.
Wonderful.
He promised to visit me.
Great.
And I have this wonderful new camera person, Russian. I forget, he's a Russian name. Nikolai. Oh, thank you. I have to use this book because
yes, you have to go out.
I keep forgetting things so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Yes.
And remember, keep using your brain.